Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining Kubernetes Sri Lanka. And today, to discuss about the AKS Managed Ingress Add-On, we have Kasun Rajapakse, who is a senior consultant at Avanade. Kasun Rajapakse, let's, I guess, go for it straight away.
Yeah, so thank you very much for having me. So I would like to thank Kubernetes Sri Lanka for giving me the opportunity to do this session. So uh, let's go and see how the case manage Ingress add-on will work, right? Okay. Okay. So today's session, as mentioned, today we'll discuss about how we can use a case manage Ingress add-on. It is a add-on that are already add-on that we can enable within our AKS clusters, right? So before we jump into the uh, session, let me give an introduction about me. So my name is Kasun Rajapakse. So I work as senior consultant in Avanade, Netherlands. So I'm a Microsoft MVP and I have a Kubernetes certification plus Microsoft certifications as well. So you can connect with me through the LinkedIn and other social media like Twitter and kind of things, right? Okay. So if you have any questions, you can put it into the chat. So the moderators will pick up those and let me. They will let me know what are the questions, so I can ask them. I can answer those questions, right? So uh, let's first see what is Nginx Ingress Managed Add-on, right? So I think if I'm assuming that if you are already familiar with Azure AKS, so if you are not familiar with Azure Kubernetes Service, I will give you some brief introduction about what is Azure Kubernetes Services. Azure Kubernetes Service is a managed Kubernetes offering that is available in Azure. So uh, such as other Kubernetes flavors in other cloud providers, Azure has their own managed Kubernetes service. So this Azure case managed Kubernetes is a fully managed service. That means you don't have to provision most of the service, most of the workloads, such as your control plane, especially because that is totally managed by Microsoft cloud provider, Azure cloud provider. So that is take care from them, right? And most of the other components such as node pools and other integrations, those are most of them are managed. But as we are like a consumer of Azure Kubernetes service, we also have some part of management to be done, right? But there's a very interesting another flavor of Azure Kubernetes service called Azure Kubernetes Automatic, still in preview. So if you like, you can take a look at it as it's like a fully managed service. Right? Okay. Then we'll come to discuss about what is actually ingress means in Kubernetes, right? So Ingress is a kind of a resource in Kubernetes which allows us to expose our application to the external communications. So in the Kubernetes Ingress, there are a lot of features like SSL terminations, then path-based routing, and use different kind of other advanced features which are coming in layer 7 of the network stack, right? So there are a lot of mm, ingress controllers because Kubernetes ingress is if you have ingress resource, it doesn't work as it is. You need ingress controller to work with ingress resource. So there are a lot of ingress controllers available in the market such as Nginx, then Istio, then Linkerd and other uh, in- other ingress controllers as well, right? So if you, I think most of the most popular ingress controller in Kubernetes is Nginx, right? If you are already played around with Nginx ingress controller, uh, it is a way of like using ingress resource in Kubernetes and exposing your applications into the public internet, right? But when you install the Nginx ingress controller into your cluster, right, in a tradition, in a in a self-hosted way, right, then you need to manage the ingress controller from your own as well. That means you need to make sure that ingress control is highly available and configurations are properly configured, and all of the additional component like scaling and everything has to be configured and take care of by yourself. But in Azure, we have a add-on that we can add to your AKS cluster, which is we call it as Manage Ingress Nginx add-on, right? So this service is a game changer, like because this is come as a managed service. Therefore, we don't want to worry about the scaling, high availability, and all the components. We can simply install the add-on, and then uh, you can take the advantage of the ingress controller features as well, right? So, so the overhead of managing the ingress controllers and those things will be taking care of this from this add-on. Okay, so let's talk about what are the features that are available in this AKS Ingress Nginx add-on, right? So this is actually uh, as I mentioned, it is very easy to configure, and um, it is a managed service. So based on the Kubernetes Nginx Ingress controller, which is already in the use, right? Then additionally, we have features like integrating with Azure DNS for public and private zone management. So if you want to buy any domain names, we can use Azure DNS in combination with this add-on to register the DNS names and create the records and everything automatically without using manual tasks, right? So the beauty of this one is you can this add-on support Azure public DNS as well as private zones as well. Then another must-have feature is like SSL termination. So this Nginx add-on is supporting SSL termination with combination of Azure Key Vault. So this will use Azure Key Vault to store your certificate details, and then use that certificate detail for your domain names as well. Other features like as you can see, SSL configuration, application routing, and internal Nginx controllers for private DNS as well. So those are the additional features. Then you can take a look at. Okay. So if you take a look at the high-level architecture of this service, so you can see in here you have your Azure Kubernetes cluster, right? So then you have your deployments or workloads running. Then you have your Nginx resources as well. Then in front of uh, all of your resources, you have your manage Nginx uh, add-on. That means app routing in Azure terminology, right? So then this Nginx controller, manage Nginx controller has a connection with cluster load balancer. Then this cluster load balancer is uh, configured with the public IP of the Azure Kubernetes cluster, right? if you are using AKS which support public cluster, then you will get a public IP. But if you have a private cluster, then you will not get a public IP, right? Then you need to use other mechanisms like firewalls in your organization to route the traffic, right? Then you have the user. User will access the public IP, right? Or your DNS name, because then the DNS will also configure with this public IP, right? Then this traffic will be routed through the load balancer and the ingress control and to your then the ingress resource and then to your workloads, right? Then additionally, as I mentioned previously, this Nginx add-on is connected with the Azure DNS for DNS records management and as well as your Azure Key Vault to certificate SSL termination and certificate management as well. So in demo, I will show you how we can provision application, sample application with combination with Azure DNS and Azure Key Vault as well. So this is the high level architecture that we can use Azure AKS Managed Ingress Add-on with SSL and Azure DNS, right? Okay. Yeah, so now we'll see how we can see this in action. So then in the process, I will explain what are these each components and each command do. So how we can see this in action. Right. Okay, so okay, let's first I will open my terminal, then I will open my um, Azure portal as well, right? So here I have two scripts that I'm using, right? So one of these script is used to create the Azure Kubernetes cluster. Actually, I already created Azure Kubernetes cluster by using this script because usually cluster creation will take a few minutes. So I don't want to wait that time. So therefore, I have already created a cluster, but I will explain the commands that I use to create a cluster and what are the parameters that we need to add additionally, right? So in this this command, this script, I will create the cluster, right? So here I will export few environment variables such as my resource group name, then the cluster name, and as well as the region. Then I will authenticate my Azure CLI with Azure portal, so Azure, so I can run commands, right? Then I first, if you are working with Azure, you know you should create a resource group to provision resources because it is a must to have resource group for resources. So I will create a resource group call AKS Nginx dash routing Archie in the North Europe region. Then this is the from line 17. I'm going to create the cluster. For that, we have the command AKS create command, right? So this will accept the parameters, right? There are a lot of parameters this command accept, but I'm using the most uh, required parameters for this demo. But if you need additional configurations, then you need to refer the documentation and add these required commands, right? So the most required commands are resource group name. So you have to provide the resource group which you are going to provision the cluster, right? Then the cluster name, right? Then the location. Then the most important parameter for this demo is this enable app routing parameter, right? If you want to take advantage of manage Nginx Ingress Control add-on, then you need to use this enable app routing parameter. Otherwise, this add-on will not install, right? But if you already have a cluster and you need to use this feature, it you can use AKS ACX update command, right? Then you can include this parameter to install that into your existing cluster as well, right? Then I will use generate SSH keys to key generation for the cluster, right? So I already run this one in my environment, right? So if you go to that AKS cluster, you can see the cluster is provisioned, right? Then if you go to the workloads, right, then you can see there's a deployment. Uh, yeah, there's a deployment uh, should be there. Uh, yeah, there's a namespace called app routing system, right? So if you go to that app routing system, you can see a deployment called Nginx. So this is the manage Nginx ingress controller that is provisioned, right? So you can see at the moment it is running 2 pods, right? So uh, you can take a look at the YAML as well. So what is Nginx ingress controller do, right? Okay, now yeah. Then additionally we have the services related to that Nginx ingress controller, and you can see it is using external public IP, right? So this external public IP will associate to this Nginx. This, if you go to this external public IP, this is configured with the load balance of the Nginx ingress control, load balance of the Azure Kubernetes cluster. Then additionally, you can find configurations related to Nginx, right? So there are few configurations added, but there are some limitations in this manage add-on. So I will discuss those limitations here now. So if you want to use this Nginx add-on, right, there are few limitations. This is not the exactly same Nginx ingress controller that we used to deploy as a self-hosted, right? So therefore, if you are using, you have to take into consideration of the uh, few limitations, right? So if you go to the Microsoft documentation, they are in here. You can find these limitations, right? So the if you need for some of these, uh, if you cannot satisfy this, if you have it like a blocks related to these limitations, then you shouldn't use uh, Nginx add-on, right? If you think if you after your evaluation you can if you can live with these limitations, then you can use the add-on, right? But it's very important to take consideration of these limitations, right? Okay, so now we have our cluster uh, which is provision with the Nginx add-on, right? So for this demo, I will show you how we can use Nginx add-on and how we can use Azure DNS for DNS registration and how we can use Azure Key Vaults for your secret SSL termination and certificate management as well. Then we'll deploy a sample application. Then we will see how the applications are working. Then finally, we will see some monitoring the Nginx ingress control as well. Okay, now we'll go back to the command line. Okay. Next, I have another script, right? So here you will find a few additional variables that I need for my demo, such as like key vault name, then the certificate name, zone name, and other uh, resource groups names and subscription names as well. So therefore, uh, for to de- for before I deploy the application, I will use these environment variables, right? So these environment variables will be used for my demo, right? I'm already logged in, so I don't need it. Then first thing what I need to do is I need to create a key vault because I need this key vault uh, for my certificate, certificate store, and I need to integrate that certificate with Azure Key, Azure Nginx add-on for SSL terminations, right? So for that, we can use the command AC key vault create option, right? Create parameter, create command, and we need to give the basic parameters such as resource group and resource name and the key vault, and I will enable the RBAC authorization for this key vault. So I will give the required permissions that are needed for this key vault as well. So then I will run this command, right? So now you can see the key vault is created, right? So you have the key vault URI, then all the authorizations. Let me check the RBACs, right? Yeah, RBAC authorization is through. That's fine. So now we have our key vault, right? So because we use role-based access control for key vaults, we should have a proper permission to interact with the certificates like certificate creation, certificate interacting with certificate. Otherwise, I cannot upload any certificates to the key vault because in Azure Key Vault, there are two ways of RBACs permission. One is data plane level RBACs and plus the key vault level RBACs, right? That means uh, if you want to give access to the key vault, then you have the key vault level RBACs, right? But if you want to work with certificates, secrets, and keys, then they have a separate RBACs for that. Uh, uh, that specific uh, services, right? So therefore, if I'm working with certificate, then my user should have the proper RBAC permission assigned. Otherwise, I cannot interact with that specific certificate level resource, right? Okay. So what I'll do is I will go and give myself a permission. So for that, I need to use Azure role assignments, right? So we'll use AC role assignment, then I will create a new role assignment. And to interact with certificates, I will use keyword certificate officer role. So that then I can manage the certificates such as updating, creating certificate, and all kind of things related to certificate, right? Then under the signees, I am giving my user account name. Then I will give the scope, right? Which scope this permission is applied. So my scope is specifically to the key vault level. So I will give my resource ID for my key vault, right? So basically what this means is I will get the key vault certificate officer role assigned to my user into this specific key vault, right? In our case, the key vault that we are going to use for app routing. Here I will run the commands. Now you can see I got my role assignment, so I can go and see as well. So if I go to resource group, I can see there's a key vault that I created. Then if I go to access controls, right? Then role assignments, if I search for key vault, let me check. Yeah, you can see under the key vault certificate officer, my username is added there, right? So that means I have the proper permission to interact with the key vault certificates. That means if I go to the certificates, right, so I can uh, see the key vault, right? But if I go to like secrets, then I don't have the permission, so they will complain that you don't have the proper permissions. That's why the role assignments needed for to work with certificates. Okay. Then what I'll do is um, then I have my certificate here, right? So this is a PFX. So if you want to use SSL termination with Azure Key Vault for your Nginx add-on, then your certificate should be in the PFX format. So if it is not in the PFX format, you have to convert it to PFX format. Then you should upload it to the your keyword, right? So I have here with that certificate with the PFX. So then I will use Azure Keyword Certificate import command and the keyword name, and I'm giving a name to that certificate, right, in the keyword. Then I will look for the file, right? So I will use this command to upload the certificate. Now you can see that the certificate is uploaded, right? So you can see it is a wildcard certificate, right? And yeah, it is having all the required details for the certificate, right? So if you go to the portal as well, if you go to the certificates, you can see the certificate here as well. Right? It is up. Okay. Then next, we need some few informations, right? Such as your key vault ID, because now next step, what we are going to do is we are going to integrate Azure Key Vault with Azure AKS cluster, right? So then AKS cluster app routing. So therefore, app routing can use Key Vault as for its certificate SSL termination. For that, we need our keyword ID, right? So therefore, I will create a variable, then I will use Azure keyword show, then I will give a keyword name, then I will grab the ID from the output, and I will filter it the ID, and I will output it as a TSV format. Right? Then if I type keyword ID, then you can see the resource IDs there. Right? Then on the line 40, what we are doing is we are going to include the keyword into the app routing settings, right? So here we are using AKS app routing command and we'll update the app routing configuration. Then you have the resource group name and the cluster name. Then we have additional parameters such as enable KV. This will enable the integration with KV keyword with app routing. Then we will use attach keyword and we will give the keyword ID to which keyword we need to use for app routing. Right? So this will take some few minutes. I guess it will take like 1 or 2 minutes, right? So we'll wait until this one is updating, right? So it will run in the case update option, right? Then if you have any questions, you can ask from until this one is run. Okay, until this one running, I will explain these commented commands, right? So, for example, if you don't have a public DNS to work with the app routing DNS configurations, right? Then you can use AC network DNS on create, and you can give your DNS on, and you can create a public DNS on for your domain name, right? Then you can change your domain name servers uh, to the Azure domain service name servers. So then you can use Azure DNS for your uh, for this app routing service. But I already have a DNS service in my case. So because, for example, if I go to my Azure portal, then if I search DNS, and I have my DNS service here. So this is will be used for this demo. Yeah, I think it is completed now. AD role. Yeah, so now it's completed, right? So you can see in the output, you can see the keyword integration is through, right? Then AD role propagation is done, right? So now the keyword is integrated with app routing. here. So here you can see, yeah, so it is enabled. Okay. Next, next step, line 48. So as I mentioned, I will use Azure DNS as well with routing to automate the process of DNS registering. That means creating a records and required records in the DNS zone automatically when you create a ingress resource, right? So for that, we need our DNS zone ID. So we'll use this command to get the DNS zone. So I will use the command AC network DNS zone, then show command to view the details. Then I will query the ID and output it as a TSV format. So on ID, you can see my resource ID for the DNS. So, okay. Then we need to do another update for the app routing. Now we need to add our DNS zone into the AKS app routing add-on. For that, we need to use command in line 52 AC AKS app routing zone. Then we'll use add command to add the zone to the app routing. So here you can use ID of the zone. So we uh, saved in the environment variable. Then we need to use the parameter attach zones command to attach it to the app routing. Then we will copy this command. Then we'll run it. After we run it, it will, yeah, it is a quick one. So it'll go and add it to the cluster. We'll wait maybe 1 or 2 minutes to configuring it. Yeah, it's taking few minutes, so we have to wait until the update is happening. Yeah, now until this one is running, then I will explain the next command. So what we are going to do. So next in the line 56, what we need to do is actually we need to get the certificate ID. That means we upload the certificate into the key vault, right, in the cluster. Sorry, in the key vault that we use for our app routing, right? So for example, this is the certificate we are using, right? But for app routing to work, we need to get the ID for this secret, because then the app routing, when we create an Ingress resource, we need to mention which certificate we need to use. For therefore, we need to get the ID for this um, app routing, sorry, certificate. Right. So this is the certificate identifier, right? So you can copy this one, or you can use the command line to get the certificate app ID. Right? Sorry, certificate ID, right? So what I'll do is, now the command update is completed, right? Now the DNS zone is also integrated with the routing in AKS, right? So next we'll get the certificate ID, right? Because this will need for us to put it into the Ingress resource, right? So this is the app ID, so you can copy it here, right? Because we will need it in future, right? Okay, now that's all that we need to do in like a infrastructure level configurations that we need to do for this uh, demo that we need, like for SSL termination and DNS configuration, right? That now we can use the sample application to provision the ingress resource and the application, and see how the app routing and SSL termination is working, right? So here I have two Kubernetes resources, right? One is Ingress, another one is the simple deployment and a service, right? So I'm not going to explain the deployment and services, right? But I have to give some uh, configuration changes that you need to know when you're working with app routing and in a case, right? So we have in here, you can see the basic Ingress resource, right? But this Ingress resource is a bit different, right? Because in here you can see we need to put a special annotation, right? So this annotation can be found in the documentation. So kubernetes.azure.com/tls cert key vault URI. So this is the place where we need to put our certificate URI. We get it previously, because without this configuration, this Ingress doesn't know where to find the SSL certificate that need for the specific domain, right? So therefore, I will copy the URI, uh, then I will paste here, right? Then another thing is, if you work with Ingress, other Nginx controllers or the Nginx Ingress controller in a self-hosted way, you know that we need to specify the Ingress class, right? Ingress class name. Otherwise, the Ingress will doesn't know which Ingress you should pick up, right? So therefore, if you want to know what is the Ingress class for the app routing, so uh, you need to authenticate with Azure AKS. So for that, you can use AKS get credential command, and you can get the kubeconfig uh, configuration for your cluster. Right? So I will get it. Then what you can do is you can use kgets uh, ingress class resource, right? Then if you run that one, you will see the ingress class. So this is the app routing ingress class you can use for add-on, right? So you need to copy this name, right? Then you need to add it into the Ingress YAML under the Ingress class name, right? As it is this way, right? Then another thing you need to do is if you are using subdomains, then you need to put the name of your domain, right? So in my case, under the rules of the Ingress, under the host, I will put SSL-demo in my domain name here, right? Then all the others are basic configurations like backend service and the path and the prefix path type. Then we need, if you are using SSL terminations, then you need to use the TLS section and you need to give the host name again, which domain name this TLS is going to work. Then there's a very important thing is the secret name. In the secret name, you should start the secret name as the key vault and you can use whatever the name after key vault dash, right? So it's a mandatory thing in app routing. So if you didn't start your secret name as key vault dash, then app routing will not work with the key vault to authenticate the TLS and SSL certification, SSL termination, right? So that's one thing you need to make note when you work with app routing. Make sure your secret start with key vault dash. Then other part you can use whatever the name you like. Right? Okay. Now we have discussed about what are the changes that we need to make to your Ingress resource, right? Then we will go and we'll create a namespace for this application. Then we'll go and deploy the sample application, right? You will deploy the service and the deployment. Then we will deploy the Ingress resource as well, right? So if you type get dash namespace routing SSL demo all, right? Then you can see I have the pods, right? Then you have the service, then you have the deployment of the application, then replica sets. And if you want to get the ingress, you can see the ingress resource as well. Then you can see that it is using the ingress class that use app routing class. Then you can see the host name and the IP address, which is uh, connected to the app routing Nginx ingress controller add-on, right? Then there are some additional resources of provisioning. You can see that there's a pod deployment, additional deployment is deployed to this my application, other than my application called Keyword AKS, right? Because this one is provisioned uh, to do the SSL configuration for your application and do the SSL termination. It is a kind of a intermediate resources provision to work with SSL termination and keyword, right? So if you see this one, don't panic or anything. This is the behavior of using the app routing with AKs and app routing with keywords, right? Now, now we can see that our application is running. So let's go and see whether the required DNS records are added to the my DNS sort, because this should be automatically added through the app routing, right? So we'll go into the DNS zone, right? Then if you go to the record sets, right? So can't remember the domain name. SLTM, right? So yeah. So here, if you go to records, you can see my A records was added to that IP address, right? So it's 422.45, right? So which is the same as my ingress IP address. So you can see 4245. Then it's add the TXT record. This is needed for to work with app routing and Azure DNSs, right? So then you have the other TXS records as well. These are not These are my previous demos, DNS records, but these two records are the one we created for our demo. This one, right? Okay, cool. Now we can verify that the DNS records are added and all the all the configurations are properly configured, right? So then what we can do is we can try out the domain name and log on it and go, right. So you can see this is a very basic application. So and it is accessible. And if you go to the connection details, you can see the certification as well. So you can see the certification is valid and the certification details as well. Right. So yeah, that's how the app routing works. So you can see how it simplifies the Ingress deployment, right? So you don't want to go and manage your DNS and um, certificate management. So everything is taken care of by the app routing, right? Okay. Next, additionally, I would like to show you how we can monitor the app routing, right? Sorry, your manage Nginx add-on, right? Because in Azure we have the manage Prometheus and manage Grafana. So I already have configured those for my environment. So and when I run this cluster will be added to the uh, engineer, the manage Prometheus to capture the details like metrics, right? So for that, I will use Azure Manage Ingress, right? Manage Grafana dashboard, right? So here I can see the uh, dashboard related to Nginx Ingress controller, right? Can see the details of it, right? You don't have much detail, but we'll generate some date, some graphic, right? I will use K6 to run some load testings, right? And let's see whether we can see any updates, right? If you don't see any updates, that's fine. You can see here you can see the how many memory usage, CPU usage are using, certificate expiration, and all of these things can be seen in this dashboard, right? But it maybe take some time to get the data here, right? Yeah. Yeah, but this is a simple dashboard you can use for monitoring the Nginx Ingress controller add-on as well. Let's wait a few minutes and see whether we can see data. Right. Then we'll, but you got the concepts how to monitor it. Yeah. Okay. Then next we will see the. So let's see what's the conclusion that we can come from this service. So at the end, it is a very powerful and very convenient add-on that we can use in Azure Kubernetes service, which allow us to seamlessly manage the Nginx Ingress controller as well as managing the Ingress resources as well. Then additionally, we can integrate uh, this add-on with other Azure components like key vaults and DNSs, and you can secure your domains and URLs and seamlessly registering the DNS records with Azure DNSs as well. Yeah. So that's all for this session. So thank you very much for everyone. So if you have any questions, I can answer for you. Yeah, thank you.
Hello, Kasun. Thank you so much for that informative session. Let's see if there's any questions that are raised towards us on the platforms. I'll let you know if there's any. Let's give it a minute.
Yeah.
So, Kasun, I think we've gotten one question.
Yeah.
So one of the questions we've gotten is how can I configure TLS SSL termination for an application using the Nginx Ingress controller in AKS?
That's the way I already showed you with the add-on, right? But if you are not using add-on, then uh, you need to use other method like what is the Let's Encrypt, or you need to upload the certificate uh, into as Kubernetes secret, or then as well. And another way of you doing it, you can store that certificate in Key Vault. Then you can integrate Azure Key Vault with the Azure Kubernetes cluster, right? Then you can use the Key Vault secret with the Nginx self-hosted one as well.
Yeah.
That's Yeah, but
Right.
if you are using add-on, you can use the way I have shown you.
Okay. Perfect. I think another question we've gotten is what are the practices for managing multiple domains and subdomains in a single ingress control in AKS? I'm not sure if we've touched upon that today.
Usually what you can do is uh, for example, if you have like app1 dot your domain name, then app2 dot your domain name, I will create two different ingress resources, right? Because some some applications use different paths after that, right? After the domain name, right? So therefore, I will use two different ingress resources for two different domains. Right?
Yeah, I think we've gotten a follow up to that initial question I asked. That's
Yeah.
basically what's the difference is using Nginx with the cert manager, encrypt issuer, and this add on.
Yeah, Cert Manage is uh, open source one, and it is giving you the certificates from the Cert Manage itself, so you don't have to pay anything, right?
Mhm.
And another thing is Cert Manage. I don't know whether Cert Manage support Azure DNS registration. So I think it's not possible to automatically register your DNSs, Ingress DNSs with DNS Azure DNS, right? With Cert
Mhm.
Manager.
Yeah.
But this one, then you can automate the DNS record registration and uh, SSL terminations as well. But if
All
you are
right.
using Cert Manager, then you need to manage the Cert Manager environment as well and everything. The self-hosted.
All right. I think that concludes the questions that we have. I don't see any more coming in. All right. Thank you so much, Kasun, on behalf of the Kubernetes Sri Lanka organization as well for taking your time, I'm sure out of your busy weekend as well,
Yeah,
to actually like explain these things to us. Because I think it's very useful that we have experienced people in this industry who are willing to take the time and talk about these particular things, or else this sort of knowledge is only available to whoever's like immediately around you.
yeah,
So that being said, thank you so much, Kasun, for being with us today. I think it's probably time for us to conclude the session as well, and thank you for everyone else who's joined with us today to the stream. Thank you so much, Kasun.
yeah. Thank you very much. Have a good day. Bye.
Bye. You too. Bye bye.